Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Chapter 8, Lesson 7. It's all about solving inequalities. So when we solve inequalities, actually it's very, very similar to when we are solving equations. So, very similar. To solving equations. In fact, the only difference really is going to be the symbol at the end. So ultimately our goal is to get the variable alone. So if we look at example 1 here, solving y plus 5 is greater than 11. We draw a line down the middle. In order to get y alone, I have to get rid of that plus 5. So in order to get rid of a plus 5, I have to do its opposite, or subtract 5. And I get y is greater than 6. Again, exactly the same method that we used for solving equations. The only difference is, again, this symbol in between. Example 2, now we have a little bit more difficult one with fractions, and we have to graph the solution on a number line. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1.5 to both sides. And if I do that, I should get h is less than 6.5. Moving over to my number line then, I'm going to put 6.5 right in the middle. And then I have 7, 7.5, here would be 6, and 5.5. It says h is less than 6.5. So I'm going to substitute 0 in here. So 0 is less than 6.5. Is that true? No, which means that I'm going to be going into the right direction. And because it's just less than, 0 is less than negative, or 6.5, so yes. So I'm going to go in this direction. Now, because it's less than and not less than or equal to, it's going to be an open circle if you recall that from last lesson. Which means the arrow is going to be pointing off into this direction this way. So if I go ahead and fill this in, this is the direction that my arrow should be pointing for this one. Except it should be a open circle. So let's fill that back in like that. There we go. Alright. We're going to talk about example 3, and then we're going to talk about something very special when it comes to multiplying and dividing by a negative number. Let's go ahead and snooze that.
Van Wickman, you have a...
Alright, so let's talk about example 3. Juanita is going bowling and has $25 to spend. Write and solve an inequality to find the maximum number of games she can bowl if each game costs $3.75 and she buys a snack for $2. Important information, $25 to spend. Each game costs $30.75 and she buys a snack for $2. We want to find maximum number of games. So, let's start by defining a variable. So G equals games played. Now we're going to write an inequality, but we're going to pretend like we're writing an equation. So I have $25 to spend. I'm not going to put an equal sign, though, between here. So $3.75 per game plus the $2 for a snack. Now here's where it gets just a little bit interesting, because I need to find out what symbol to put between here. So if she has $25 to spend, that means that she could spend the full $25, which means it could equal $25. But we cannot spend more than that, which means that the 25 has to be greater than or equal to the 3.75g plus 2. So we're going to go ahead and solve this. So we're going to subtract 2 from both sides right away. So I have 23 is greater than or equal to 3.75g. Make that actually look like a 5. And now if I divide both sides by 3.75, so I get my calculator out here. So 23 divided by 3.75, and it looks like 6 games is what you can play. So it says Juanita, so Juanita can play at most 6 games. Now, when we multiply or divide by a negative number, what really happens is we're looking for the opposite of what the question is asking us. So, for example, when we multiply or divide by a negative number, to get the variable all alone, what I'm actually doing is I have to switch the inequality symbol. So let's look at an example here. Letter A here says negative 9x is less than negative 27. So I have to divide both sides by negative 9. And I should have x and 3. But I need to switch the inequality. And the reason why is because if I use the number 0, right now it should say that 0, or x, is greater than 3. And 0 is not greater than 3, which makes sense. But if I substitute 0 in here, negative 9 times 0 is less than negative 27. That's not true. 0 is not less than negative 27, which is why I have to flip the inequality. So on my line here now, I have 3, 4, 5, here's 2, and here's 1. So if I don't flip this inequality and leave it like this, 0 is less than 3, which is true, but 0 is not less than negative 27, which is why that's not okay. So starting at 3, it has an open circle because it's greater than, and because it's greater than, that means I'm going to be going off in this direction. And then letter B. Here's a little bit more difficult one, but similar process. Subtract 4 from both sides. So I'm left with negative x over 5 is greater than or equal to 7. Careful here now, because I dealt with a negative number, but it was with adding and subtracting and not multiplying or dividing. Next step, I wanted to multiply by negative 5. So I'm left with x, negative 35, and I need to flip the inequality. Negative 35 goes right in the middle. Here's negative 34. Here's negative 36. This is a closed circle because it can be negative 35. And it needs to go off in this direction. Let's actually use the highlighter here now.